What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. Georges St-Pierre has fired back at critics of Islam Makhachev, making it clear that many people judging his performance at UFC 322 simply don't know the art of fighting. Islam dominated JDM in their welterweight title fight at Madison Square Garden on November 15th, becoming a two-division champion. Despite that massive achievement, parts of the MMA community complained that the fight went the full 5 rounds. They argued that a champion at Islam's level should have finished the fight, even though he controlled every single moment. While some fans focused on the lack of a stoppage, many MMA analysts and fighters praised Islam, calling him one of the best in the entire sport. St-Pierre, widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters ever, is firmly in that group. On Aiden Ross's podcast, he spoke about being in the arena that night and witnessing Islam's performance firsthand. According to St-Pierre, it was nothing short of brilliant. He said Islam barely took a clean punch and executed a near-perfect game plan, showing mastery in every exchange. When he heard people complain that the fight went to a decision, he couldn't believe it. He said those critics simply don't understand what high-level fighting actually looks like. Dominating another elite world-class fighter for 25 minutes, especially when moving up a weight class, is one of the hardest things to do in MMA. St-Pierre explained that many casual fans only value knockouts or submissions, but they fail to appreciate the technical excellence required to shut down a champion the way Islam did. He also acknowledged that the performance wasn't a flawless highlight reel finish, but that doesn't take away from how impressive it was. St-Pierre emphasized that going up a division and beating the reigning champion is incredibly difficult. Islam made it look easier than it should have, controlling JDM everywhere the fight went. From the grappling to the striking exchanges, he dictated the pace and never allowed JDM to build momentum. St-Pierre said that kind of dominance is rare, and people who dismiss it simply don't understand MMA at the highest level. He doubled down by saying Islam's ability to shut down bigger, powerful opponents is proof of how complete his skill set truly is. To St-Pierre, the performance was freaking amazing, and anyone criticizing it is missing the bigger picture. Islam not only won the fight, he made history, and he did so while barely taking any damage at all. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to help support the channel. Moving on to another news. Dan Hooker is staying in good spirits despite his tough loss this past weekend. On Saturday, he stepped in against Arman in the main event of UFC Qatar, and things didn't go his way. Arman dominated from the opening moments, controlling every exchange before finishing Hooker with an arm triangle choke in the second round. Even with the setback, Hooker isn't dwelling on it. He explained that he went straight to the hospital after the fight, got scanned, and everything came back fine. Doctors told him his nose was broken, but he laughed and said that happened at the weigh-ins, not during the fight. Hooker admitted there wasn't much to break down. He took a big swing at the #1 fighter in the world, and Arman showed why he's at the top. Hooker said it is what it is, joking that if you swing big and miss big, that's just part of the game. He confirmed that he's not dealing with any serious injuries, noting that his hands are good and he's ready to return sooner rather than later. In fact, he already has someone in mind for his next fight. He said that shortly after the fight, Hunter Campbell called to check on him. Hooker picked up the phone with what he described as a sad face, and when Hunter asked if he was okay, Hooker responded with, "Moicano sucks." He said he wants to give Renato Moicano a hiding and joked that they should have an old man fight. Hooker made it clear he's not going to hold up the division. Since he took a shot at the #1 guy and it didn't pan out, he's willing to fight down in the rankings and get right back to work. Moicano, currently on a 2-fight skid after losses to Islam Makhachev and Beneil Dariush, seems like the perfect matchup for Hooker in February, especially with a rumored Australia card in the works. Hooker said he would love to fight close to home, ideally on the Sydney card, and thinks Moicano makes total sense. He believes the fight would be fun, not just inside the cage, but also outside it, with plenty of playful trash talk and build-up. Hooker joked that both he and Moicano got cooked, saying Islam cooked Moicano and Arman cooked him, so they might as well have a cook-off together. And for what it's worth, Moicano seems interested. After the call-out went viral, he responded on social media, calling Hooker easy money. Moving on to another news. Max Holloway has finally explained why he isn't jumping on the hype surrounding the historic White House event that so many fighters are desperate to be part of. While the idea is massive and the spotlight would be unlike anything the sport has seen, Max made it clear that one thing matters more than all of that: his family. Since the event will only allow around 5,000 people in attendance, Max said his own family wouldn't even be able to get seats. For him, That's an emotional deal breaker. He said he would still fight there if the UFC specifically asked, because it's a huge moment for MMA, but he's not losing his mind over it like everyone else. To him, family always comes first. Max is coming off that huge win over Dustin Poirier, a victory that reignited his push toward the top of the lightweight division. He is already targeting the rematch with Charles Oliveira, and if that fight gets made, the winner will likely be pushed right back into title contention. Meanwhile, things are getting interesting at the top of the division. A matchup between Ilya and Arman is suddenly becoming far more realistic than it was just a few weeks ago. Arman just picked up another impressive win, and if Ilya returns in February like many expect, fans are already calling Arman the clear #1 contender. The timing lines up perfectly for a massive title fight. Max went on to explain his thoughts even deeper. He said there's currently no American UFC champion besides him holding the BMF title, which means he sees his odds of being on that White House card as pretty high. But again, his hesitation comes down entirely to family. He talked about how he worked his way up for years and got used to having his family close at ringside, always there to experience the moment with him. The idea of fighting in one of the biggest events ever without them in the crowd doesn't sit right with him. Still, he said he'll do whatever the UFC asks, but he hopes to return early in the year, maybe around March or April, once he heals from his injury. Waiting all the way until June, when he already fought Poirier in June of last year, would feel like too long of a layoff. He wrapped up by sharing his thoughts on recent fights, acknowledging Arman's win over Dan Hooker and Ian Gary's victory over Belal Muhammad, both of which shook up their respective divisions. Moving on to another news, Robert Whittaker has stepped in to defend Khamzat and Islam after both were hit with criticism for what some fans labeled boring title-winning performances. Even though Islam and Khamzat controlled their championship fights from start to finish, the absence of a stoppage led parts of the MMA community to call those dominant wins underwhelming. On his latest podcast episode, Whittaker pushed back strongly on that idea. He explained that people truly have no understanding of how impressive it is to dominate another world-class fighter for nearly 25 minutes. When you're dealing with champions or elite contenders at the absolute top, shutting them down everywhere is incredibly difficult, and doing it round after round is even harder. Rob pointed out that fans often overlook how high the level really is, and how rare that type of control actually becomes at championship level. He emphasized that holding someone down, neutralizing them, and preventing every attempt at offense is something you scarcely see in UFC history. According to Whittaker, it's wild to watch that level of grappling mastery unfold in real time. He added that we're seeing a bubble of insanely high-level grapplers, and he's waiting for the moment when that bubble finally pops. To him, the small details Islam and Khamzat show in those exchanges are like watching a tutorial. Everything is deliberate, precise, and deeply technical. Whittaker also laughed at the reactions from casual fans who compare these moments to street fights. He mocked those who say things like, "What do we even do in a street fight to stop that?" He pointed out that if someone jumps on top of you in a real fight and controls you for 25 minutes, the truth is simple: you lost. That dominance, whether exciting or not, still represents mastery at the highest level of MMA competition. As for what comes next, Khamzat is expected to return sometime after April 2026 in a massive middleweight clash with Nasruddin Imavov. Fans have waited a long time to see Khamzat back in action, and that matchup promises to be one of the biggest middleweight fights of the year. Islam, now the first Russian two-division champion, is currently waiting for the next move. His next opponent could be Ilya, who has been calling for that fight, or one of the top welterweight contenders like Ian Gary or Kamaru Usman, depending on how the division plays out. Whatever happens, both fighters continue to shape the landscape of the sport with their unique, dominant styles. Moving on to another news, Dana White has reacted to the heated altercation between Khamzat and Ian Gary at UFC Qatar, an incident that quickly became the biggest talking point of Fight Week. What initially looked like a friendly moment caught on camera turned into a real physical confrontation within seconds. Here's what actually happened. Ian approached Khamzat at the Fighter Hotel and grabbed him from behind in what seemed like a playful, friendly gesture. But the grab was far more physical than it needed to be, and the undefeated Chechen clearly didn't appreciate it. As Ian began walking away, Khamzat slapped him on the back, also in a friendly but noticeably aggressive way. That immediately changed the mood. Ian turned around, they exchanged heated words, and Khamzat shoved him, telling him he would mess him up. Security rushed in to separate them before things could escalate further. The moment spread quickly online, fueling speculation about what really happened behind the scenes. Dana White eventually broke his silence and addressed the situation directly. He said UFC staff and matchmakers are getting tired of these hotel hallway incidents, especially with Khamzat being involved in them, card after card. According to Dana, this is becoming a pattern, and the organization is not thrilled about dealing with these confrontations every event week. Dana also hinted that something else happened backstage that the public still hasn't heard about. He didn't go into details, but his tone made it clear that the situation was even worse than what fans saw in the short clip circulating online. Meanwhile, Ian Gary is riding high after his massive win over Belal Muhammad and continues to use every interview to call out Islam Makhachev. With a 2-fight win streak over Perez and Belal, Ian feels justified in pushing for a title shot and believes he has earned the right to be next in line. As Dana continued speaking on the situation, he admitted the whole thing was chaotic. He explained that there was a lot of bad energy behind the scenes, and that the matchmakers are not big fans of Khamzat for several reasons. Dana even acknowledged that he doesn't know how they managed to stop the altercation from escalating further, admitting that the team didn't do a great job preventing it from happening in the first place. Despite that, the UFC will now have to decide how to move forward with both fighters as tensions continue to rise. Moving on to another news, Islam Makhachev has opened up about several major topics in a new interview with a Russian outlet, including a possible move back down to lightweight, a potential super fight with Ilya, and who he believes is truly in line for his next welterweight title defense. Islam made it clear that a fight with Ilya at 155 is not going to happen unless the UFC puts a major offer on the table. He explained that he is not a young fighter anymore. And every weight cut takes a serious toll on his body. Getting down to lightweight is no longer what it used to be, and for him to drain himself like that again, the UFC would need to give him something huge. Otherwise, he is staying at 170 and focusing on his run as the welterweight champion. When asked about who might be next in line for the welterweight shot, Islam said the picture is finally starting to clear up. According to him, there are 3 or 4 legitimate contenders. And within the next couple of weeks, he expects the UFC to make a final decision. Islam has been monitoring the performances in the division closely, and he believes the timing and momentum of each contender will play a big role in the UFC's choice. Islam also reacted to Ian Gary's recent performance at UFC Qatar. He said Gary didn't surprise him at all, but if Gary managed to surprise the UFC, then it's possible he could be next in line. Islam explained that the promotion often prioritizes fighters who build hype and deliver standout moments, and Gary's rise has been steady. If the UFC decides that Gary offers the biggest storyline or the strongest push, Islam is ready to take that fight without hesitation. He then addressed Shavkat Rakhmonov, acknowledging that Shavkat has been out for more than a year due to injuries. Islam pointed out that it's difficult to justify giving a title shot to someone who has been sidelined for that long, especially when other contenders have been staying active. However, he also made it clear that if Shavkat recovers and the UFC selects him as the next challenger, he has absolutely no problem accepting that matchup. For Islam, everyone in the top mix presents a real challenge, and he's prepared to face whoever the promotion chooses as his next opponent at 170. Moving on to another news. Jon Jones reacts as new footage captures a lighthearted moment between him and UFC champion Khamzat during Jones' recent visit to Chechnya. The former heavyweight champion has formed an unlikely but genuine friendship with the middleweight king after traveling to the region at the invitation of Ramzan Kadyrov, who hosted Jones for his son's 18th birthday celebration while discussing a major ambassador deal in Russia. Jones described the trip as unforgettable, saying he got the chance to shoot exotic weapons, including an RPG, and that he ate like a king while taking in the culture and hospitality around him. During the visit, a video surfaced showing Jones and Khamzat engaging in a playful grappling exchange. Fans quickly noticed that Khamzat, famous for his relentless pressure and world-class grappling skills, managed to shift and briefly take down the heavyweight legend. Jones later confirmed on social media that the sequence was completely legit, explaining that Khamzat's conditioning, strength, and timing were all on full display in that moment. Jones added that there was only so much he could do on concrete, and that Khamzat had come in tremendous shape, making the friendly exchange both fun and impressive. Jones went on to describe Khamzat as humble, focused, and intensely driven. He recalled how, after they shared an elaborate dinner together, Khamzat mentioned he still needed to drive 4 hours back into the mountains to continue training. Something Jones said left a lasting impression. Jones emphasized that his time in Chechnya was filled with memorable experiences, generous hosts, and meaningful conversations. and he expressed genuine appreciation for the warmth he received throughout the trip. When responding to fans online, Jones also commented on the broader landscape of upcoming fights. He hinted that Ian Gary could be in real danger when facing a competitor like Khamzat, given the middleweight champion's discipline and the shape he is currently in. The playful takedown clip may have been lighthearted, but Jones made it clear that anyone stepping in front of Khamzat right now is facing a serious challenge. His reflections added even more intrigue to the growing respect and camaraderie between the two champions. Jones added that such moments highlight how champions inspire each other to grow, elevating discipline, respect, and the intensity of the sport.